All right, Anna. So congratulations for your 710 score. You went from a 480 to a 710 in...
It was 580 actually.
580? Okay, 580
Yes.
when you took the first test, right?
First one was 580, and then I registered for e-GMAT. Then I scored 570, which was less. And then I was really disappointed. And then I didn't give up, and I talked with Shaarang. He was my advisor. And then now I took 710.
Okay, good, very nice. And you went from, so what was your split with the 580? What was your split there?
In the very first one, my verbal was more strong. I can actually give you the exact numbers if you wait a second. So for the second one, I had 570, and I had for verbal 26, which was bad because the previous one was better. And now the second one, the quant, was better. It was 42. Because I prepared, like I watched all the videos and did all the exercises on e-GMAT. And then in my first one, I scored 580, and my verbal was 30, and my quant was 39.
39. Okay. Okay. And you ended up getting a V48 and a Q48 and a V39. Wow, that's a marked improvement. For your 710 was a Q48 and a V39, right?
Yes. Wait, I will check it again. I wrote it to Shaarang. Should be here. Yeah, quant 48 and verbal 39.
Right. That's an amazing improvement. So tell me, walk me through your preparation. When you started preparing, before you started interacting with Shaarang, did you feel confident that you'll be able to get to that 700 plus score?
Well, first, like my aim was to score around 680 or 650, and I never thought that I can be above 700, because very first when I started preparing, of course, I was like, yeah, let's do 700, and then I realized that it's not that easy. And for the first test when I went, I had no idea. I mean, I did some tests on the MBA.com, but you know, the questions repeat themselves, so actually they were like, it was not accurate because I scored 600 something on those tests. And then the first test, it was a shock because I thought I can be at least 600, because I also prepared a lot for the first one, but my strategy was much different. So I also went through maths, but not in detail. I prepared a lot with the official GMAT questions. So every day, and I mixed it, sometimes verbal, sometimes quant. And it was also, I don't say it was a bad strategy, because I think you can get used to the official questions. And that was my biggest fear now, because I prepared only with e-GMAT, and you know, I haven't practiced official questions. And now in the last week, I already mostly I prepared with official, because I wanted to get also like familiar again with them. And I felt that maths, also maths and verbal, they are a bit different than on e-GMAT. And then I was afraid that, oh my God, they are a bit different, because maths, I think they are easier than on e-GMAT, and of course you don't need that much time. And on e-GMAT, I always took so much time for questions, and actually my timing was my biggest weakness. And then for verbal, on e-GMAT in the last 2 weeks, it was quite fine. So I scored, especially on sentence correction, also on the CR, I was quite good. And then I did some official questions, and they were not, I mean, I saw most of them correct, but still I had mistakes. And then that's why I was not sure. And before the test, when I went, I just went there. I would like to be above 600, and 600. My aim was 650, 680. I didn't even imagine that I can reach, because 1.5 week I talked with Shaarang, and I only had 2 mock tests in Sigma, because I already did 4 for my second attempt. And the first mock, I think I scored 600 exactly. And then Shaarang said probably we should wait, but I already booked my GMAT appointment, because the school is waiting for my GMAT score since end of November. And then I did another test 5 days before, and that went good. That was 680 or 660. I don't know exactly, can't remember. but that was good one. And then I talked with Shaarang, and he said, yeah, he thinks I'm prepared, and that gave me a bit of relief, but still I was really, really stressed. And actually I think my biggest weakness was timing before, because on both tests before I didn't finish the test, especially on the second one. I had a few questions left because I read many forums, and a lot of people say that it's better if you do more correct, and it doesn't matter that much if the last questions, if some questions left, because the thing is that it's better not to answer all of them than answer them and answer them incorrectly, because the algorithms then will give you even worse score. And then in the first two tests, I didn't finish the test, and now I finished. And on maths, I even had, I can remember, when I was at 10 minutes, I only had 3 minutes. I only had 3 questions left, and I was actually really down, because I was like, oh no, and now I rushed. And because during the test, I guessed on some questions, and in the end, I was like, oh, now I did the worst, and I rushed, and it's gonna be really bad. And then I had 8 minutes break, and then the verbal came, and I knew that now I really need to focus to at least score 600. And then on verbal, I went through all of the questions, and they were not that hard. I mean, I was like, okay, I'm still like, it's sure they are 500 level questions, because it can't be that they are like that easy. But on the other hand, I didn't make mistakes. I mean, I was sure in most of the questions. I was actually, except reading, I had one reading passage which was really hard, so there I was not that sure. But there I also knew after like around 2 minutes, I just, okay, no, you need to let go and move on. Because on the first one, I had sometimes questions where I was taking like 4 minutes time, and Shaarang said, no, you need to hurry up. And I was really working on my timing, and I didn't accept that this, I mean, I'm pretty sure that this was a big mistake before, and my timing improved a lot. Because in terms of knowledge, I think already for the first one.
Okay, Anna, so I'm going to pause you here. Your video is a little bit granulated, so, and plus there is no light on your face.
Wait,
So yeah,
is it better now?
it is much better. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry.
I didn't want to interrupt you before, but then I'm like,
Sorry.
Yeah, much better now, much better. I can, before that it was more of a hazy image coming in. So yeah, much better. Okay. So, tell me one thing. You say that timing was a big issue for you early on, when you took the test the first time, and then eventually, and you were taking what, 4 or 5 minutes, and Shaarang told you that this is way too much time. So how did your timing improve in your final attempt? What did you do to improve your timing?
I think the biggest advice I can give is that don't stuck on questions. So if you don't know, then just move on.
And how did you come to that advice?
Well, I realized that even if you you start a question, and I know how does it feel when you know how to do it. And then you are already at 2 minutes, and you know that you know these questions, but somehow you don't get the results from the ABCDA, and you keep doing it, and in the end, either you solve it or you don't solve it, which is the worst, because you spend 4 minutes and you can't even solve it. So it's better if in the first minute you just start, you reach 2 minutes, and then if you can't solve it, just guess and move on.
Right. And I noticed that Shaarang actually gave you do's and don'ts before your test, and one of the don'ts was that don't get stuck on a question. And then he also gave you that timing strategy map, wherein after these many questions.
Yeah, so that's one, the table actually. So I jotted down on Quant on the first page, and also on Verbal. And once I even, because I was so stressed, once I even looked back, and I knew that it will take me some minutes, but I needed to check how much time I still have. And actually I stick to it. So I knew that on maths, for example, I was really on time all the time, and in the end, even better. So that helped me. I already had it on the first test. It was a bit different, because I remember for the first one, I read some forums, and some people suggested that you should take like double time for the first 10 questions, because the first 10 questions count a lot. And also Shaarang said that this is actually not true. So yeah, also this one, oh my god, the first questions on maths, it was a weird question, but really weird. It was not a GMAT like question. It was about interest rates, and I knew how to solve it, so I started solving it, and it was around 2 minutes, and I didn't get the solution. And that one, the first question, I guessed. And I don't know if it was good or bad, but I
It's
moved
okay.
on. So,
You know, one
yeah.
question here and there doesn't matter. It's really the grouping of questions. How do you attempt that? And again, you have so many questions to basically, the algorithm is not gauging your level just based on one question or two questions. It's actually taking a group of questions, and
Yeah,
that's
but
how
there
it's
is a
making the
myth
decision.
actually that the first 10, I mean, I don't know, but there is a myth that the first 10 questions take a lot of, count a lot. And I think a lot of people spend really double time, because I did the same in the first attempt. I checked, double checked my solutions. Now I haven't even double checked once. I just clicked if I get the solution and then moved on.
See, that's not completely a myth. Those questions do count a lot, but that doesn't mean that you answer those questions at the cost of the questions that come later. You have to balance it out, right?
Mm.
And why do those questions count a lot? Because ultimately the test is a test of it's a test of your skill. So if you're making lots of mistakes in the first 10 questions, and this algorithm is able to tell that, okay, you're not really at that high level, right? So it kind of paces based on your attempts. But at the same time, if you spend way too much time there, then you don't get to prove to the algorithm that I am truly at that level. And frankly, even if you spend more time, the questions are such, either you know or you don't know, really. I mean, for some questions, yes, you can
Yeah.
spend 5 minutes, 6 minutes, but then that's really out of you doing that at the cost of the other questions. So tell me about the experience that you had once Shaarang started to coach you on how is it that you should be planning. So once you took the test, you got a 580, and then you had a retake, and then you came up with a plan. How was that plan different from how you were preparing earlier?
Um, so earlier, as I said, I practiced mostly with official
Mm-hmm.
questions and only a few topics which I knew. For example, the word problems. Then I practiced extra, but like all in all, I haven't went through everything in detail. And then I started with Shaarang with e-GMAT, and then I went through everything. However, I couldn't stick to the schedule because I was slower, and I really studied a lot, but still I was slower. It took me more time, probably because I thought I have all the knowledge, but I didn't. And then also with the tests so on Scholaranium, and then I always practice there, but it took me more time. And then I went to I wanted to go actually even earlier for my second attempt, but I couldn't. And then I did it in December, end of December. And actually I knew, and also Shaarang told me it's gonna be too early, but I already booked it, and I didn't want it. I mean, they didn't pay me the
So
money
the
back.
data on the system told you that you're not ready for the test.
I had to book it because the school that time didn't have the interview with the school,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew that I already gave my application in November, and I thought that I can like transfer them my first score, and I couldn't, and that's why I wanted to kind of hurry up. And
Mm-hmm.
according to my first schedule, I should have finished like. I
Mm-hmm.
was slow, but I should have been well prepared for my second attempt, but I wasn't. And then around 2 weeks, like when I booked, I already booked in, I think, November, and then I tried to stick to the schedule and catch up, and I couldn't. And then I started to take tests, mock tests, and they on Sigma I scored like around 500 something, and so 600, 580, 590. And then of course I was always in contact with Shaarang, and he said that I'm not prepared, because if you are like 30 points plus minus, then you should not go. But since I already had it booked, I would have lost most of the money. So I was like, it's gonna be a good try, and you never know. I knew that I already I prepared a lot for this. I started in September, end of August, September. First, not so intense, but still, it was, I don't know. I wanted to try, and then of course, when I scored even worse, although I prepared 2 months with the e-GMAT, then I was really down, and I was like, okay, is this actually this course like suited for me? Because sometimes you are just different, but I didn't have other options because I didn't want to do it alone. It was always a security that Shaarang was here as a consultant, and I knew that I really need to make it, and then I continued, and
So
I
what did Shaarang provide you that led you to continue with the course and that gave you the hope that you can get to your target score? So elaborate a bit on that.
I mean, I didn't told him that I don't wanna go with the course. I texted him how my exam were, and then he already told me he still thinks I need 50 to 80 hours, which actually I did more than 50 to 80 because I wanted to do it the next one end of January, start of February, but now I did actually a bit later, but I wanted to be 100% sure. And then he told me what to do again, so I needed to go through all those videos where I didn't score 80%, and I also felt which topics were not that, which topics were a bit weaker, and then I concentrated on them. And my problem was also for the second attempt that for verbal I haven't concentrated that much, and my verbal was really down. And now I started again to prepare for verbal because for the second attempt I couldn't finish sentence correction. So now I started with sentence correction. I did everything. And for critical reasoning, in the first 2 attempts, it was always my best. And now I didn't concentrate that much on critical reasoning. However, I did more readings. And my promise to myself was that I read every day, which I didn't, but I would advise it to other students that do it, because reading is, you can only practice it if you really like do it every day or as much as you can. But since maths took me a lot of time, also after the second attempt, I just didn't have time for verbal.
Okay, so then, so when Shaarang told you that you need to redo certain concepts in which you scored fewer points, so basically the data told you what to revise and
Yes.
where you were weak at, and you were able to utilize that. Because I did take a look at your Scholaranium scores. Your Scholaranium last 25 questions, your accuracy was really high. So how did you go about doing that in Scholaranium?
Like so Shaarang told me for critical reasoning, because we knew that the first 2 attempts it was good for critical reasoning. So now I didn't have time to go through the videos again, which were below 80. And I started with the assumption ones because he said I should go through assumption and with easy inference questions, and then also practicing weakening and strengthening questions. And I did, like on Scholaranium, I only selected the topics and I practiced the critical reasoning part.
Okay. And then how would you review the solutions?
The solution review. So I didn't, Shaarang told me I should not take notes for, in my case, I should not take notes for SC and S either. So not for critical, not for sentence correction, because it takes too much time. Because first I started with taking notes, but it took so much time. And I always went through all the explanations. Only not, so I went through the explanations as in one of your video you said, if you are like 100% sure, then not. But if you are not sure but you guess and it was a good guess, then I went through still on the solutions because I knew that I was not sure. So most cases, except I was sure that this is the solution, I read all the solution explanations, and a lot of times also the comments, or I ask questions, and most of the times your colleagues replied after 1 day or something. So it was also really good. Even in the last week, I still had questions. So I can advise that go through solutions, because that, especially in verbal, it helps a lot. Also in Quant.
Okay. So tell me, how would you rate your confidence level when you went into the final test? You got a 690 right before the test. How was your confidence level when you took the test?
I knew that one test even though if I got 690, I did tests on the Scholaranium and the maths, because the questions are harder. I always had mistakes, and I knew maybe I scored now 690, but still 1 week before I scored 600, I think, and I had no confidence. I just really wanted, my target was 650, 680, but I was like, okay, I just want to be above 600. Otherwise, it would have been a really, really, really sad. But
Okay.
I never expected 700.
Okay. But then you were getting good scores in Scholaranium. You actually did get a 690 in Sigma X mark. So the data tells that you are ready, right?
Yeah, but that was just one test.
On test. But then in Scholaranium, you had your accuracies pretty high for medium and hard questions as well. You were hitting the metrics that Shaarang provided you, right? In SC and CR, yeah. So yeah, but you kind of, maybe you didn't pay too much attention to that data that you were getting. Is that right?
Yeah, because sometimes, I don't know if you check that, sometimes in the last week I did readings, and one of them was 100% and the next one was 50%. So that's why I was afraid.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So tell me, if you were to give three pieces of advice to your fellow students, what would those be?
The first one is timing. Let go questions and move on. Don't stuck on. That's my number one.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is check the solutions in detail and take notes, because I had a huge notebook with all the maths questions, and even though Shaarang advice was to go through the questions every 2 days, I couldn't do that, because even like going through the questions took me 3-4 hours because I had so many questions.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I always went through some questions, and all the questions which were wrong, and I knew that these are like important questions, I always jotted it down. And even in the last, so this notebook I do since I started with e-GMAT. So I have all the questions on quant in that notebook. So take notes and revise it. And my third one, read every day or as much as you can, academic articles, or I don't know, like on news, economists, and read, because that's really important. And reading is still one of, I think it's my weakness, and
Mm-hmm. Okay.
that's I can recommend. And maybe
Those are
like
good suggestions. Mm-hmm.
maybe one small recommendation, I did no, notes on my door, on my notice book, on my laptop, for example with famous exponents or fractions, you know, because when you are calculating, I'm not that fast when it's about calculating, and a lot of calculations I still write down. And I think if you can a bit rush your calculation a bit faster, it's always good. Of course, if you are like a math person, then it's not a, you can be either or. But if not, then just, it really helps if you know the important fractions or the exponents. So if you
Mm-hmm.
can just take notes, and you know, if you are on your way, you go onto the city center, you can just check your phone, the screenshot, and then just memorize some, because I
Mm-hmm.
think it also helps.
That's a good suggestion. Yes, yes. So, what do you think about the processes that we teach for quant questions, for verbal questions? Were you able to apply those processes?
To be honest, I was like, okay, these are really hard, especially on Scholaranium, especially the hard questions. I was like, I won't even need it. Like, it's impossible that such a hard question is coming. And actually, I have to tell, I didn't have those hard questions as on Scholaranium, but I think that was probably that prepared me. And that's why I was afraid, because I couldn't finish them in 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think your preparation, it's really what I like is, and I wish I would have started with e-GMAT, because you go through everything on the videos. And first I didn't wanted to watch like everything, because you know, sometimes you already knew it. Like if you already start with you already had maths in school, you think they are like really easy, and but actually it helps if you go through, because you revise it again and again. And I think it's like a really detailed preparation. And for maths, the questions are really high core, hard level. And um, for verbal, the sentence correction I find really, really good. I think it goes through every topic. For critical reasoning, what for me it was always hard to do inference, and I checked the videos, and probably it also improved after a while. I checked the critical reasoning videos, and for reading comprehension, I think it, only the reading one is the one which I think it's really hard for you to have to students, because even though you took the videos, of course there are some things like taking notes and advices, but for reading, the only thing that really helps is if you read a lot and you get used to it and you do a lot of notes. So in the test, when you take the notes, I never use my notes in the test, but still I know that you have to take the notes, and then maybe you can do, I can make drawings or just make like abbreviations and practice reading and take notes, and then in the test it won't take you so much time.
Okay, all right, good.
And I really like the Scholaranium, that you can make selections and do the timing and do medium hard questions, and then I think it's really, really good.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. So did you apply the pre-thinking approach for CR?
Yes, I did actually. And I already knew for the first attempt that you have to pre-think, because I read many forums and also other strategies, but I couldn't always like do it, and now I did it, and I'm always pre-thinking, not a lot, just a bit. And when I go through the questions, the thing is, since you practice so much, you get already familiarized with the questions, and you know that, okay, this can't be the questions because there is a wording which is like too extreme, too strong, and in the end you will have 1, 2 from which you can decide. But since you have a pre-thinking and it matches, because I can remember I had this in the test, that I had a pre-thought, so like I was pre-thinking, and I had the 5 options, and actually two of them were fit. I mean, I was like not sure, but I chose the one which were more closer to my pre-thinking. So actually, yeah, do it.
Okay. And how about in SC? Did you apply the meaning-based approach?
Yes. Oh God, yes. I even watched your video 2 weeks before. I think you were in the video, or your colleague, regarding the meaning approach. It was a seminar on the weekend, and actually I practiced this meaning approach only in the last weeks, because before that I was preparing. I was more focused on the grammar, and actually it's really important, especially that the first you always have to read the whole, and the first question you have to adapt to that. So even though the grammar is better in the second one, but the meaning is different, then don't choose it.
Okay, all right. So in Quant, did you apply any shortcuts, or would you solve the questions in a very step-by-step manner?
I think step-by-step manner.
Okay, good. Okay. I'm going to ask you one more question. So tell me, let's say the mentorship program that you were in, let's say if that were not part of your GMAT prep, where would you be?
I mean, it's a hard question, but it for me, only just that you have a security that you can always ask your mentor. I for sure I would have not continued for the second one, because I knew that I have a mentor, and now I just can't cancel the course, because I have Shaarang, and he's for sure he's experienced. So I think it's always a security, because sometimes I ask him, okay, now I'm like at this level, what should I do now? In which which direction to go? So I think for me it was really, really helpful.
Okay, good to know that. Okay, so I'm going to stop